Sheriff's going to come up and introduce the guys who are going to be doing the training and take it from there. Thank you, Sheriff.
Good morning. First of all, I want to, something we normally don't talk about, I want to thank you for what you're doing for the life, liberty, and property of the citizens of the United States. You do a great job that a lot of people are not willing to do. I want to thank you for that. I also, on behalf of the Smith County Sheriff's Office, want to thank you for all your support of law enforcement. Smith County is blessed with people that support law enforcement, and one of the things that, one of the reasons that we're delivering the training that we're delivering today, we were requested to come here, but we've been delivering this training. I think we've delivered it to over 600 people in 2 events. It's just an overwhelming call for the citizens to come to this training. And today we won't be doing the open and concealed carry today portion of it. We're doing the active shooter. But at the end of the presentation today, if you do have any questions on open or concealed carry, Sergeant Coslin or I will be happy to answer any questions you might have. We think it's incumbent on us to, before the open carry went into effect, as well as all of these mass shootings throughout the United States, we think it's our job to educate the public, and that's why we're doing these type of trainings that we are. In saying that, I want to introduce a couple other deputies we have here today. They don't know I'm going to do this, but Sergeant Robert Phillips back here in the back. If you stand up, Robert. Robert is a training sergeant at the Smith County Sheriff's Office. I've known Robert for years. I knew him when he worked for Kilgore Police Department and Tyler Police Department, where he retired from, and we were lucky to get him here. Jeff McClenny, is Jeff still here? Yes, sir. Jeff, if you stand up. Jeff is one of our detectives at the Smith County Sheriff's Office. And finally, I'm going to introduce the guy that's going to be talking mostly to you today. Little bitty guy here, standing at the door back here, Sergeant Daryl Coslin. Daryl began his law enforcement career about 30 years ago in that little city to the west of us, about 100 miles, Dallas. And we were very fortunate, after he had 30 years experience there, to get him here at Smith County Sheriff's Office. So we've been very fortunate to get a lot of people of Daryl's caliber over the last 3 years to work for us. And you're in for a lot of information today that could save your life. So I promise you, you won't have any trouble at all staying awake in this presentation. But since Columbine, you know, law enforcement reacted a specific way to Columbine. Law enforcement itself has learned a lot from Columbine and all the other mass shootings throughout the years, and we react differently ourselves. And one thing that we haven't ever seen is where we actually share this information with the public, because you're going to be the first ones there. And now that, thank God, we've got open and concealed carry in the state of Texas, you will probably be, some of you could very well be the first ones to react to an active shooter. But Sergeant Coslin is going to give you some great information on what to do and what not to do if you're ever in that position. So one quick thing, he can't talk about politics, but I will just for a minute, and that is that I am running for re-election this time. And somebody put out some yard signs, they're already gone. We put out some more. If we run out, I'll bring you some next time you have a meeting, or you can contact me. But there are some yard signs out here if you want, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Bring some to the headquarters, please.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm going to give you Sergeant Daryl Coslin with Smith County Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. If I fall off this stage, I hope it's covered under workers' comp, because this scares me. I get carried away with what I'm doing and lose focus on where I'm at, and I will fall off this thing here in just a little bit. Like Sheriff said, my name is Daryl Coslin. I started with the Smith County Sheriff's Office back in May of 2015 after retiring from the Dallas Police Department. My lovely wife allowed us to leave the Dallas area and move out just north of Palestine. We've got some land there and a new house, and could not wait to get out of Dallas. She said I had to have another job. I was retired for 1 week. And the only reason I had that week off was because it was taking a while for the state to get my paperwork transitioned from Dallas to Smith County, because I could only have one license, one place. So I actually got a week off. And then I was right back to work. But I love it here. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of really good people out here. The community is so involved here. We had the community involved in Dallas, but it was a little different involvement. We wound up putting a lot of them in jail. So I did a lot. I was very fortunate when I was in Dallas. I got a lot of experience there. I was on the SWAT team, did undercover narcotic stuff. Yes, somebody that's 6'9" can go out and buy dope. It's crazy, but they'll sell dope to anybody in Dallas. The last 5 years on the department, I was a primary instructor out at our one of our academies. We have 2 academies, one for the new officers coming in, the new recruits, and then our in-service academy where we handled the continuing training for 3,600 officers. So I was responsible for that, all our use of force training and everything there. So done this a few times, and like the sheriff was saying, this is an extremely important subject for us in our society. You guys know that active shooters, these mass shooting situations are happening all the time, and they're not going away. It's only going to get worse. So we're going to talk about that and get you guys some kind of idea how to prepare yourself and what to do if you're involved in that situation to help your chances of surviving the incident. And that's what we want. We want to reduce the number of fatalities. Can we eliminate them totally? No, that's never going to happen. But if we can reduce the number of fatalities and injuries there, that's what we want. So we want to give you some things to think about and to prepare yourself mentally for that event in case you find yourself in it. What we're going to cover today is disaster response psychology, what it's about, what we're going to go through in the moments of the event. We're going to actually define what an active shooter event is. We're going to talk about some of the active shooters that have happened here in the United States and some that has happened across the ocean over in other countries. And we're going to talk about, last, our response to this. If you've been in my presentation before, it's about 2.5 hours to get through the whole thing. I don't have that much time today, so this is going to be an abbreviated version. So we're going to get through this kind of quickly, and we're going to leave some of the videos out and some of the material out. But I want to hit the highlights and get you guys as much information as you can. We're going to be hosting some more classes, so if you don't feel like you've got everything here and you want to come back, there's going to be other classes we're going to have where we have the full time period to present all the material for you. Columbine. When we hear the word Columbine, do we think of a place or an event? An event. An event. An event that changed this country. A mass shooting at Columbine where 2 high school students go in and shoot up a bunch of their classmates. In that event, they killed 13 people, injured 21. They were armed with 2 9mm pistols, 2 shotguns, and 99 bombs. 99 bombs are what these 2 kids built. Their goal that day was not to shoot up the high school. That's not what they were there for. If you remember a little bit of the history, a few years prior to this, Oklahoma City, when they blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City, that was their motivation. They wanted to blow the school up. They had thought this out. They planned it well. They had built large propane bombs, like the propane tanks off your barbecue grill, and put timers on them. And they set diversionary devices a short ways away to have the local law enforcement, fire departments respond to that, to be tied up, which would take a longer response time to get to the high school. They rigged bombs in both their cars on timers to blow up after the event was started, because who would be in the parking lot? All the students who evacuated and all your first responders showing up to help, right? They were targeting your first responders and your students. They went into the high school in the library, in the cafeteria area, and carried in several of these propane bombs with timers on it and set them up under the big support columns. It was a several-story high school. The library was right above the cafeteria, and there were big concrete columns that supported that ceiling. At the time the bombs were supposed to go off, there were 600 students having first period lunch in that cafeteria. The bombs they built were sufficient enough to take out the columns and drop the concrete building on top of them. We could have lost over 600 kids that day. The bombs failed inside the school. They were lucky. They were extremely lucky. The kids had went back out to their cars and waited for the bombs to go off. They didn't. They met back up. They'd armed themselves and met back up. And then they went into school and started shooting people. They went in that same cafeteria and started shooting up in the cafeteria. Now, I will tell you, I forgot to tell you sooner, this material is graphic. There's going to be some videos in this presentation that are very graphic. This is an adult subject. If it's not something that you want to listen to or you want to hear or you want to see, please understand, now go ahead and step out of the room if you're not up to seeing this stuff. I just wanted to warn you first. Bob, if you want to start that video for us. It's very hard to hear. I apologize for that. The 911 call is terrible. The 911 center is getting flooded with calls right now. The shooting has started, and they're getting flooded with calls here. So much so now that the national news media is calling in. Is that what we need in the middle of this crisis? They are overwhelming our 911 system, and the few call takers we have are now having to talk to the freaking news media. We don't have time to talk to them. So that's a problem for us here. We've got people calling in from the school. We've got kids. We've got teachers. We've got parents calling about their children. It is mass chaos. This is the school cameras from the cafeteria. Now we've got some shooting going on. That's a teacher there walking up the stairs. We're going to see our two shooters here come into the school. Look at what our kids are doing here. They're just hiding in place, just like you guys here. They're just crawling to the tables. That's not a very successful tactic for them. You'll start seeing our shooters here come into the videos. The bomb goes off. I detonated a pipe bomb inside the building. Here's one of our shooters here on the screen. There's the other one. They're walking through the room, targeting their fellow classmates and shooting them as they sit there. You can hear the parents calling, trying to get to the school. They know this is going on. They want to get to their kid. How's my kid doing? We don't have that information. It's chaos right now. We still aren't controlling the shooters yet. This is the father of one of the shooters calling. Want to know what the status of his son is. He believes he's one of the shooters. None of that's been announced yet. They don't know. It's still ongoing, and this guy's calling. If you're a parent and you think your kid may be capable of doing this, and as soon as you hear it on the news, and you think, oh, that's little Johnny, you should have done something prior to little Johnny shooting up his friends. That's not parenting skills there. So, we've got a huge problem there. We're getting a response here, and everybody knows what happened with the response in Columbine. The police shows up. We've never dealt with a situation before. We call the SWAT teams in. We deal with it like a typical barricaded person because that's all we've experienced and that's what we were trained at. And that's exactly what I was doing at that time when this happened. I was doing it in Dallas, and we did the exact same tactics. We had armed suspects in the building, basically holding hostages. They had supposedly rigged bombs on the doors and stuff. It was a very dangerous situation. So what do? We set a perimeter, we control the outside, we try to make contact, we start negotiating. We try to talk them out. In the meantime, they're in there shooting people. Did it work out very well for law enforcement? No, it did not at all. So we had to look at what we were doing, and we had to change our tactics and how we were going to do with an active shooter situation. And we've changed that, and we've changed it again. Now it's the point where when you have a deputy or an officer respond to an active shooter call, we don't wait on anybody. If I'm the first one there and the event is still going on, I'm not waiting for a 4 or 5 man team to go in there. I'm not waiting for the SWAT team. I am going in there by myself to find the shooter and stop the shooting. That's what I'm doing, and that's what the officers are trained to do. We don't wait for other people to come. We go find the threat and we deal with the threat. And we're going to stop the threat. Now then, what do we do between the time the threat starts and I get there? When you guys are there. So we've addressed our training. Now we want to address your training and what you should be doing. Things that we can do to increase your safety during this event. So far, have you heard me give these guys names or talk about them? No, not going to. Who are they that we know their names? Who are they that they deserve to go down in history with any kind of notoriety? That's what they're looking for. No. The sheriff's not going to mention their names. We're asking the media not to mention their names. There was an active shooter situation a few months back, last year, in Oregon at a junior college. Y'all remember that? What was that shooter's name? Don't have a clue, do you? The sheriff up there not one time released that man's name. Never spoke about it. Why would we want to honor him? If we're going to talk about somebody, whose names should we remember? The victims. They're the important ones here. They were doing nothing wrong that day, living their lives with their family, their co-workers, their friends, and they were assaulted, attacked, and killed. If we're going to honor anybody, let's honor them. So let's not name these people. They don't deserve it. Disaster response. The first thing we're going to talk about here is what to expect, the phases of this disaster, what we're going to go through psychologically in the event, and how we can prepare ourselves for the event so we can help minimize the psychological effects. We're going to go through 3 phases here. We're going to go through denial. And denial can be something as simple as we hear what sounds like gunshots outside in the hallway. Is that unusual for the church to have gunshots out there? So what's the first thing we think? What was that? It sounded like gunshots, but that can't be gunshots because we're in church. What are they? Is that some kid got firecrackers down there, or is somebody banging on a pipe with a hammer? What is that? If it sounds like gunshots, what is it? It's gunshots. It doesn't matter where we're at, what we're doing. If we're at the movie theater, we're at a restaurant, we're at the post office, or we're in church. If it sounds like gunshots, it is gunshots, and act accordingly. Let's not deny what we're seeing. And it happens to all of us. I cannot tell you how many times I sit in a squad car in full uniform. I'm at the red light. I'm in my own little world. Phew, car goes through the intersection. Just ran the red light. I'm sitting there going, did that guy just run the red light? Holy crap. It's like, he did run the red light because I wasn't expecting it. I mean, I'm sitting there in a squad car. Who's going to run a red light in front of me? And, I'm thinking about something else, and I'm sitting there going, did that really just happen? So we all experience it, even if we try to train ourselves not to. And it's going to happen. But what we want to do is we want to shorten that time that we're in denial. We want to be aware of our environment, understand these things happen. When we hear something going, was that a gunshot? Wait a minute. Sergeant Coslin told me if I hear something that sounds like a gunshot, it's a gunshot, we need to start moving. Let's get through the denial portion quickly as we can, and let's move to some actions. Let's start responding to it. Deliberation. What are we going to do? Okay, now we've accepted it's gunshots. Now what are we going to do? And we've got to come up with a plan. And then our decisive moment that we're going to act on our plan. And if you don't believe me that denial happens, we're going to watch this quick video here on social proof. And this is just a little experiment on how people react to things that they see, whether or not they ignore it or take action on it, because you'll be surprised. Bob, if you would.
Place like this street in New York City, If you were unfortunate enough to be the victim of a crime or taken ill unexpectedly, you might think that surrounded by all these people, someone would intervene. After all, isn't there safety in numbers? Psychologists say no. Research suggests that often a victim is less likely to receive assistance when surrounded by a group rather than a single bystander. When people are in a crowd, it's easier to pass the buck. It's what psychologists call the diffusion of responsibility. Liverpool Street Station in London, a busy thoroughfare for commuters. Unknown to these passers-by, Peter is an actor. As part of an experiment on bystander apathy, he's pretending to be ill. How long before he gets help? Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for more than 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow.
Please, somebody help me. It's always very distressing to watch situations like this where people are obviously suffering and no one's actually helping them. But what we have here is two conflicting rules. One is the rule we ought to help, and the other is the rule that we ought to do what everybody else is doing. And here you have effectively a group of strangers who are exerting the pressure not to intervene, not to help, and it's very difficult to rebel.
Ruth, another actor, takes Peter's place. How long before she receives help? Later, and 34 people have passed without stopping.
Well, people don't really want to know that they just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
Unwittingly, these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't get involved. They're afraid to stand out from the crowd and won't take action if no one else does. This woman has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps.
You alright? You alright?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you look a bit flaky, you know what I mean?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
You want to sit up? You alright, yeah? Sure.
First I thought she was dead. Then I checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed her because there was a bloke who sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper.
This time, Peter's dressed as a respectable gentleman. Now that his dress is in keeping with those around him, how long before he's rescued?
Hello, sir. How are you today? I'm alright.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir, and suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
Why are you lying on the floor in the rain?
Because he's part of the right group. Everyone wants to help.
I would just hate to be in this position of feeling ill and nobody helping and walking past, so I'd just like to check that he was okay. And I thought, well, it's wet, so he must really be ill. He's going to ruin the suit anyway.
Isn't that sad? You know, those people just walk by us in everyday life. Could that happen here? Do you think we would act any different as a society? Probably not. I would hope so, but probably not. What do we learn from this? If you're going to England and you're going to get sick, you better dress nice. All right, deliberation. What exactly is this? Deliberation is now we got through the denial phase. Now there's gunshots in the hall. We have to do something. What do we do? Does anybody here have a plan? I have a plan. You guys got to have a plan. All right? We need to be aware of our surroundings. We call it situational awareness. And you need to start practicing this wherever you go. Any women in here ever take a self-defense class for women? Yes? Did we talk about situational awareness? Be aware of your surroundings. Know where you're at. If you're going to walk out at night in the dark, if you're going in your car, be aware of what's around. Does it help? Have your keys ready to go. Be prepared for something that happens. That's the world we live in today. We all need situational awareness. So, when we go somewhere, whether it's a place of employment, our work, if we're going to do business somewhere, if we're going to school, church, a restaurant, a movie theater, all these places have had active shooter events occur. Things that we need to know. How do I get out of here? How do I get out of here? Because that's the first thing we want to do, right? If there's a problem, if the building catches on fire, how do we get out of here? All right, how many people came in today through those doors right there? How many people in here actually know of another exit besides going right back out here? It's good, but we've got a lot of hands that don't. If our shooter is outside this door, can we go back out that door? No, that's not a good, that exit's cut off. So we need to know ahead of time, before the event occurs, we need to have a plan. When I walk into a building, I need to know where all the exits are. How can I get out of this room? Is that the only exit, or are there more exits? And if there's not primary exits, can we make a secondary exit? What might be a secondary exit for us? Windows. Can we take a chair, throw it through the window, and get out? I'll get cut up before I get shot up. I'm all about that. And I'll jump out of the second story window, and I'll tell you what, I'm old, I'm fat, I'm brittle, and I'm scared to get the heights. But I'm allergic to lead. And if it means falling out of that window, I will do my best to slow myself down, but I'm jumping out the window. It's just knowing where we're at, what our environment is, and at least having another way out of the room. When these events occur, we're under stress. We're under a lot of stress. If you can only imagine, all of a sudden we have shooting in the hallway. Oh my God, there's someone out there shooting. What am I going to do? The panic wants to start setting in. The problem is, depending on how panicked we could get to the point where we freeze. We could get to condition black here, where we can't physically do nothing. Our brain has shut down because of the stress. We don't want that to happen. We want to stay somewhere around this condition red. Condition red, we're at our optimal athletic performance, our optimal fighting position at that. Our pulse rate is elevated, our heart rate is up, our respiratory is up. Our body is starting to move blood from the extremities and keep the blood in the core center because we need it for our organs and our brain. And also reduces the amount of bleeding in case we're injured. So our body is already doing wonderful things to take over to help us survive this incident. The human mind is an amazing, amazing thing, what it can do. As our stress levels go up, though, our mind starts taking powers away from other things. It starts allocating resources. If we get too overloaded, we go from our forebrain to our midbrain, where we have no rational thought. All our rational thought as human beings occur in the forebrain, where we solve problems. If we have an active shooter out here, is that a problem? We have to solve that problem. In the midbrain, it's fight, flight. That's what we're thinking about there. It's just reacting. Our startle reflexes are part of that. When somebody comes in and slams the table behind you, just trying to, because they think it's funny, they yell boo to get you to jump. That's not something you think about, you just react. That's in the midbrain responding to a stimulus. We want to stay in our forebrain. They put it here on this presentation. You have the human brain, which is our forebrain, and then you have the lizard brain, which is the midbrain. It's very small, but it's very fast. How long does it take you to be scared when that startle reaction occurs? Is it like instantly? That's how fast the midbrain is, because it does very little, but it's very efficient at it. The cognitive part of our brain, the human brain, the forebrain, it's slower. It takes a while. I mean, how long do we ponder over what movie to watch tonight? You know, we're going to go home and we're going to go to Redbox and rent a movie or something. We're sitting there going, no, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that. You know, we're trying to solve this problem. It takes forever. We get better at stuff by repetition, and we want to stay. I said, but we want to stay out of that lizard brain. We want to keep in our human brain here. In that, we're going to get these things. That's what we're going to get. Anybody hunting here? What's a deer do? First thing when it hears something. What's the first thing a deer will do? It'll freeze. It'll stop, right? It won't move. That's its midbrain working, because that's its survival instinct. Don't move. Because humans and prey animals, predators, we pick up on what? Motion, movement. We see things move. That's how we get attracted to them. We don't generally just walk out the deal and in the woods, there's an outline of a deer over there. That's a deer. We see movement, it gets our attention, we focus on it. So the animals have learned, the prey animals have learned to freeze. And we will do that ourselves when we become prey. If we get so panicked enough, we will actually freeze. We will physically shut down and freeze. We want to avoid that. Some of the ways we can do that, we want to calm ourselves by combat breathing. Combat breathing is just a deep, cleansing, slow breath. They'll do like 2 seconds in through the nose, pause for 2 seconds, 2 seconds out through the mouth. Just control your breathing. If you can stop for just a second when all the stuff is going on and say, I got to calm down. Breathe. Just breathe. When we calm our breathing down, we calm our heart rate down, right? And by doing this, we can bring our heart rate down by 30 points. Now, you remember that condition red we were in a while ago? Come on. It's back there somewhere. See, these things are about 30 points apiece away from each other. When we get over here in condition black, we're just frozen. We're panicked. We're shut down. We've lost control of our bladder. And other things are going on because our body is shutting all that stuff down because it doesn't need to do that anymore. It's trying to concentrate on surviving, but yet we're overwhelmed by the stimulus. If we can stop for just a second, control our breathing, get our heart rate down by 30 beats, now we've moved back. And if we're in here, we can move back to this condition. We're in our optimal survival position, right? That's where we need to be. So we need to calm down, control our breathing, have a plan or make a plan. Shift your emotions. This is huge. If somebody was shooting outside the hallway, what would a normal reaction to that be? An emotion we might feel? Scared? Might be scared. Does scared sound like you're a victim? Man. What if we hear those shots going off, and instead of being scared, we're angry? Does angry seem like we're more in charge? I'm mad. How dare they come into this building and start shooting and hurting people who aren't doing anybody any harm? I'm now mad. I'm angry. I'm not a victim. I'm not passive. I want to take charge of the situation. We're going to stop that. Either we're going to save a bunch of people, get them out of here, or we're going to deal with them and stop that. I'm not sad. I'm not scared. I'm angry. So we want to shift our emotions there. Mental scripting. How are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do? Have a plan. Where are my exit points? Can I get out? Can I create a secondary exit? Can I get out of that? If not, how can I defend the room? All right. And we're going to practice that plan. You need to get in the habit of everywhere you go, you pay attention to where you're at, what you're doing, where the exit points are, who's coming in and out of the building. If you go into a restaurant, you've seen a police officer in the restaurant, if they're in uniform, do you ever see them with their back to the door? No. The only one that's got their back to the door is the rookie. Because he gets told, you sit over there, rookie, because I'm watching the door. Because we become a target in uniform. If somebody comes in to rob the store or the restaurant and they come in and see us, is that bad for them? So we're a threat. So if they want to eliminate the threat, they're going to eliminate us. So we don't sit with our backs to the door. We're going to find a room, a table somewhere in a corner, get away from the front door, so we can create distance, time to react. And we're going to be aware of what's going on, who's coming and going out of the restaurant or out of the store. We're paying attention to that stuff. Because everybody knows who we are and what we're going to do and that we're armed. Also, we're talking about this, if you're open carrying, if you're a concealed handgun license and you're planning on carrying openly, you've now put yourself in the same position of us. You may be standing there holding your grandchild in your hand, waiting in line with your gun on your hip. Bad guy comes in and says, I got to deal with that person right there. They've got a gun on. You've made yourself a target. Now then, if we simply have it covered up, you've got your grandchild in your arms, bad guy comes in to rob. Now then, you may have time, get the grandkid down, put them back, wait for the suspect to turn, to give yourself a tactical advantage here before you identify yourself or you produce the gun to deal with a threat, right? So I know people want to open carry. I don't understand why. Tactically, it's the worst thing you could ever do for yourself to defend yourself. Off duty, I would never ever have my gun open where somebody could see it. Because it may be a situation where I don't want to get involved. I can't get involved. I shouldn't get involved. It may make the situation worse. Once that gun's out there and everybody knows, it's kind of like, you gonna do something? Not today. Anyway, Rick Mascorla was the securities director for Morgan Stanley. Sorry, I can't remember the company. Morgan Stanley. He was a retired Marine, was a senior vice president with Morgan Stanley, and was responsible for corporate security. He worked at the World Trade Center in New York City prior to 9/11. Rick was a pain in the butt. They didn't like Rick whatsoever. Rick drove them nuts. Rick had a plan how to deal with the threat to the towers, to the office, to keep his people safe. He hired security consultants to come in and said, okay, we're here, we're on this floor of the building. If you were a terrorist or you were somebody, how would you attack this building? They told him. They looked at it and said, what we would do, Rick, we'd load a van full of explosives, we'd go in the parking garage, park in the building, try to blow the building up, bring the towers down. Guess what happened shortly after that? That's exactly what they did. Unsuccessful, but that's what they did. Well, Rick, knowing that, created a plan to evacuate all those people. He trained to get them out of the building. When something happens, you get up, you don't turn off your computer, you don't get your purse, you don't get anything, you don't take time to shut anything down. It's not important. What's important is survival, correct? We got to get out. We're up on the 20-something floor. We got a long way to go to get out of this building. Now then, he wouldn't let them go on the elevator. You will go down 20 flights of stairs. Because in a real attack, is the elevator's going to be working? Probably not. We're going to go downstairs. And he wanted everybody to know what it was like to go down 20 flights of stairs to get out to the safe point that he's got away from the building. They have board meetings. The CEO, the CFO, they're all there in these meetings. He'd walk in. That's it. Evacuation drill. Let's go. And they're going, Rick, we're busy right now. Get out. And he drilled them and drilled them and drilled them and drilled them. Then the van bomb went off. And guess who was their new best friend? They loved Rick. When that explosion happened, they were up instantly from their desk and they were out the building. Every one of them survived the incident. No injuries, nothing. And there was no deliberation. There was no denial. They knew what to do and they reacted instantly. After that, he brought different security consultants back and said, okay, the van didn't work. If you're a terrorist, how would you take this building down? And guess what they told him? Fly a plane into the building. That's what we did. And guess what happened? They flew a plane in the building. On 9/11, Rick was there in the building with his 2,700 employees with Morgan Stanley. The plane hit the first tower. They were up. They were gone. All 2,700 employees were out of the building. Every one of them. None of them perished that day. When Rick had all his people out, he went back in the building. I think he made 11 different trips in and out of the building. He got his people out. Now he was going to start saving the rest of the people in the building. He was last seen between the 10th and 11th floor on his way back up to help the firemen bring more people down. His body was never recovered. He died a hero that day. He didn't deny that this event could occur, did he? He knew it could occur. And he planned for it. And he practiced that plan over and over and over. And he saved 2,700 people that day. So we know this stuff will work. So when it's time for the decisive moment, then we got to take action. Do it. Whatever your plan is, do it. Don't just sit there. All right, active shooter events. An active shooter is a shooter event that involves one or more persons engaged in killing or attempting to kill multiple people in an area occupied by multiple unrelated individuals. Has that happened in Tyler, Texas? It sure has, hasn't it? We had the shooting at the courthouse, didn't we? Multiple unrelated people. The shooter didn't care who he shot that day, did he? No. So it can happen in our own community. These are very frequent. This is maps showing from 2000, I think it goes up to 2013. The yellow dots show every location where there was an active shooter in the country, and they've missed a bunch. The very small dots up there, it's hard to see. It's 0 to 4 casualties, dead. The middle-sized dot is 5 to 9, and the large yellow dots are 10 plus dead in these shootings. As the years go by, watch what happens with the frequency of the events. It's kind of like a popcorn bag warming up. The hotter it gets, the more popcorn's going off. It's crazy. See the Fort Hood shooting in Texas. The Libby's was prior to this 2000, so it's not on there. The church shooting in Irving wasn't on here. And do you think you're safe in church? No, absolutely not. Okay, well, looking at this map, you see anything kind of stick out at you? They're crazy in California. We knew that already. If you're from California, then you have good enough sense to get out. I don't know what it is with all the old people down in Florida, but they're shooting up everybody too. And up in the Northeast, where they're big against gun control, a lot of shootings. You don't see a lot in Texas. You don't see a lot up here in what they call the flyover states, where gun rights are big, right? I know there's not a lot of people up in Wyoming and Montana and stuff, but just like in Texas, what do all those people own? They own a lot of guns up there, and they carry their guns. So, we have to protect ourselves. 160 events since 2000. And that was just through 2013. That is, I don't have the updated stats yet for 2014 and 2015, but as you guys very well know, watching the news, there's a lot. They're happening very frequently, and they're happening all around the world, and it's only going to get worse. If you're wondering what to look for, what a profile of this active shooter is, there's really not one. They've ranged from ages 12 to 72. Basically, the only ones we can rule out is if you're wearing a diaper. Whether it's the beginning of life or the end of life. If you got a diaper on, you're probably not a threat. But other than that, you're a threat. Where does it happen at? Almost 50% of them happen in some place of commerce, whether it's your work or a place that you may do business at. That's where the most of that. Educational school shootings are huge. Outdoors are few. And then others. So it could happen anywhere that we may be. The shooter, 55% of the time, there's a connection to the facility. They work there, they went to school there, they go to church there, they have some kind of connection with the facility a little over half the time. The other half the time, they're not related at all. So really, can we even plan for the event? Well, there's really no way we can identify or prepare for the shooters here. All right. Some of the shootings that occurred, Edmond, Oklahoma, 1986. Postal employee kills 14 people, wounds 6, and then killed himself. Remember the term going postal? This was the event that coined that phrase. He was upset at two of his supervisors. He got disciplined the day before. Fort Hood, Texas. We got one shooter, 13 killed, 30 injured. Reliable Metals in Alabama. Y'all know about that one, right? What, you not heard that? Well, how can we have an active shooter event and you not hear about it? This guy, it happened in a bad news cycle. There was something else going on in the world. It was kind of over like a Friday afternoon late. It didn't get any media coverage. Nobody's even heard of this thing. But it starts by killing his family. He kills his mother, sets her house on fire, goes down the street to his uncle and aunt's house, shoots them, shoots his cousin and niece, and shoots several family members. Some live, some die. And then he goes mobile. He gets in his car. Now police are responding to the house fire. Police and fire go into the house fire. They put the fire out. Then they find the woman dead in the bed. They get the call and the shooting down the street at the aunt and uncle's house and the survivors down there. And now the police are dealing with that. And now they're out looking for the suspect. And he's driving through town shooting. He drives through Walmart, shoots in front of the Walmart. He's shooting at cars driving down the road. Is this a problem for us? Huge problem. He winds up driving to Reliable Metals where he used to work. They think he was going there to kill one of his former employers. He gets there, the police kind of have him surrounded, and he winds up killing himself. Killed 10 people that day. Now, Mumbai, India here, we just had the attacks in Paris. I was teaching this class when the attacks in Paris occurred. We get a text message in the middle of class that they've got active shooters in Paris. I get home, I'm watching Fox News, and Shepard Scott, or whatever his name is, he's on there, and that guy irritates me for some reason. And he's sitting there going, and he's like, this is an event that has never before been seen in the world. This is going to change the history of mankind. Like, happened in Mumbai, India. We just talked about it. Here we have, well, hang on. Go back. Bob, let's go ahead and play the video. We got a video here. The sound should be a little bit better than this. If I remember the stats right, we have, I think, 10 shooters. They form 3 teams. They hijack a fishing trolley in the bay. They kill all the crew except for the captain. Let him pilot them back into the harbor. They kill him there. They're talking. The Indian intelligence winds up intercepting these phone conversations back with their leadership of their terrorist group. And they're giving them instructions on how to kill these people and how many people to kill and all this other stuff. They kill the captain, and then they disembark into the city. They split up into 4 teams. This active shooter event goes on for 60 hours. 60 hours. In fact, I can't remember all the numbers. I think they killed 160 people. It just goes nuts. They killed tons of people, wounded a lot more. The Mumbai Police Department, they had like 4,000 or 40. They had some crazy amount of police work there, police officers or security people in their deal, most of which are unarmed. They have no formalized training. It's not like here in the United States where we have standards of training for our law enforcement personnel. They're just basically like security guards with no training. Very few of them have weapons. The rifles they had were the old British Enfield 303 rifles, bolt-action rifles. Some didn't have ammo. And they had to deal with this event. So let's play the video. All right, hang on. Let's get back here. All right, Bob, can you launch that video for me? There you go.
In November last year, an organization determined to surpass Al-Qaeda as the world's most feared terrorist group sent 10 gunmen to Mumbai, India's biggest city. Their mission was to kill and keep on killing.
All the bodies were falling on me, and I was buried under the bodies from my waist down.
They wanted to stage a spectacle so cruel and terrifying the world could no longer ignore Lashkar-e-Toiba, the army of the righteous. Indian intelligence recorded the terrorist conversations with their commanders in Pakistan. On the 26th of November 2008, 10 gunmen arrived off Mumbai on a hijacked fishing trawler. The crew was killed. The captain left alive to navigate. Later that night, the Indian intelligence services would begin recording the terrorists talking to their controllers in Pakistan. Under cover of darkness, they landed in a fisherman's slum next to the oldest, wealthiest part of Mumbai. Splitting up into teams of 2, they said their last goodbyes and hailed taxis to take them to their targets, which were all close by. At the station, Kasab and his accomplice Ismail mingled with those they had come to kill. They were ordinary people from every part of India. Travelling to a wedding, a village, a temple. Workers laden with holiday gifts. Muslim families heading home for the festival of Eid. At 7 minutes to 10, Kasab and Ismail opened their backpacks and took out assault rifles. The policemen at the station stood watching the massacre. Then most of them ran away and hid. One who didn't was Sudam Pandaka.
त्या टायमाला आम्ही 15-20 पोलीसवाले तिथे होतो. पण काय प्रकार आहे आणि काय करावं त्यावेळेस सुचत नव्हतं अजिबात. म्हणजे आमचं सुद्धा हे चालत नव्हतं. काय करावं काय नाही.
The second in command at the station, Police Inspector Shashank Shinde, rallied his men.
फक्त त्यांनी तिथे सांगितले 5-6 रायफलवाले तुम्ही इकडे माझ्याबरोबर चाला आणि त्यांनी सांगितले हे अतिरेकी आहे तर तुम्ही फायर करा. काहीच नाही फक्त नेम धरून त्यांना गोळे झाडायचे एवढंच मनात होतं बाकी काही नाही. त्यांच्यावर फायरिंग करून त्यांना मारायचं एवढंच होतं मनात.
To take on Kasab, Pandaka carried an ancient bolt-action rifle with 5 bullets. Inspector Shinde carried a pistol. Another policeman, Ambadas Pawar, was unarmed.
अंबादास पवारनी मला सांगितले की मी पोलीसवालाच आहे रायफल घेऊन मी फायरिंग करतो म्हणून माझ्यातून रायफल घेऊन एक राऊंड घेऊन त्याने फायर केला. त्या टायमाला रायफल लोड वगैरे करूच तर त्याने फायरिंग केलेली. अतिरेकी आहे त्याचं नाव कसाव आहे. माझ्या छातीवर दणका गोळी झाल्याने गोळीचा मार छातीवर बसल्याने शांत होता आणि माझ्या पाठीमागं शशांक शिंदे साहेब आणि अंबादास पवार ते मयत स्थितीत पडले होते पाठीमागं.
As Kasab and Ismail headed for the exit, a policeman grabbed a rifle from a terrified comrade. It jammed, and in desperation he hurled a plastic chair. Now Kasab fired through the station windows, shooting down a plainclothes policeman. The Wednesday night traffic passed by, the drivers oblivious to the horror inside. An hour and a half had passed since Kasab and Ismail had come ashore with their 8 accomplices. Now they walked out of the station and melted into the darkness.
All right, how do we control the number of deaths in an event? One depends on how quickly we arrive. And how many targets are available to the shooters. Notice the difference in those two pictures? Students in the hallways filled up or you got an empty hallway. All right. It takes on average in the United States 3 minutes for law enforcement from the time the first 911 call comes in till the time the first law enforcement officer is on the scene at an active shooter event. We have the fastest response time in the world. 3 minutes on average is what the response time is. So what we're trying to do is give you a way to survive for 3 minutes. That's all we're asking for. If you will do these things for 3 minutes, let us get there, and we're coming, and we're going to deal with it. We're not waiting on the SWAT team. We're not waiting on anybody else. We're getting there as fast as we can, and we're going to deal with the problem. We're coming in. Now, what do we need you to do for 3 minutes? Like I talked about at the beginning. Don't deny what you hear. If you hear gunshots, by God, it's gunshots. Now let's get on to deliberation. What are we going to do about it? We've got shootings. What are we going to do? Have a plan. What's the first thing we need to do? We need to get out because this is not going to work. I met this young lady here at an active shooter conference at the Alert conference down in San Marcos. Texas State University has this group, this Alert training group that they have funded down there, and it is the foremost leader in active shooter training for law enforcement in the country. They have the only national active shooter conference. I got to attend that this year, and I met this young lady here. She was a student at Virginia Tech. She was shot during the active shooter event at Virginia Tech, and she's going to talk about what happened with her. Bob, if you'll start that one for us.
So this is pretty important. This day, I ended up sitting in exactly the same seat I always did, in the back right-hand corner on the right side of the class. What we don't know is at this time, someone is downstairs and he's chaining all 3 doors shut. There's supposed to be desks there. Oh, you guys can see. We heard the first gunshots outside in the hallway, and my teacher, she opened the door. She immediately slammed it and she said, call 911. And the second that door closed, he walks in. He walks in shooting. There's absolutely no time. He goes to the other side of the classroom by the windows. He's holding 2 guns. He doesn't say anything. He just starts going down the rows of people. It's very quick. It's very loud. It's very scary. We had these very shitty desks. I get on the floor. I put my knees under the chair, my stomach on the seat, hands overhead, eyes are closed. As the shots keep going, and it's, like I said, very loud, I can tell it's getting closer and closer. And I'm telling myself, brace yourself, your turn is going to come. Now, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't think I was going to get shot, but I knew that something really serious was going on. And I knew for whatever reason that I should just play dead. He shoots me. The first time is in the back. And you'd be surprised, getting shot doesn't hurt that much because shock overtakes you, but it starts to like burn and really kind of seep in, and that's when it gets really uncomfortable. It's not pleasant. He leaves the first time, he goes across the hall, and while he's gone, cell phones are ringing, people are coughing, and the smell of gunpowder has like completely filled the room. Gunpowder is like this really sticky, pungent, warm smell, and it just makes you very, very thirsty. He comes back. Now, this time, the shooting is more intermittent. It's slower because he's looking to see who's alive. I remember telling myself to stop breathing because I can feel my stomach hitting that chair, and I'm saying, stop, like, he can see that you're alive. The third and final time, he killed himself in front of our classroom. When the police broke in, the first thing the guy said was, we have a lot of blacks in here. I didn't know what that meant, but when police sweep a crime scene, they have 30 seconds. If you're red, you're critically injured. If you're yellow, you'll live. Black means you're dead. In 9 minutes, he killed 11 of my classmates and my teacher. 32 people lost their lives that day.
Playing dead. Didn't work too good for them, did it? Shooter comes in her room and just starts going chair by chair by chair, shooting him. Nobody fought back. Nobody resisted. Nobody tried to evade. They just sat there. And he continued doing what he did. So that tactic doesn't work very well. I'm all about prayer, but hiding and praying is not our solution right now. We've got to pray, but we got to move. We got to get out of here. We need to avoid this person. We're going to talk about that now. What we want you guys to do, what you're going to get out of this today, is these 3 words. I suffer from ADD. Y'all remember ADD, right? Everybody knows what it is? This is the new ADD. Avoid, deny, defend. We want to avoid the shooter. So how do we avoid it? If the shooting's out here in the front hallway, where are we going, guys? We're going that way. We're going away. We're going to avoid, we want to avoid this person. Now, we have some people in here that have their handgun license, correct? And you're thinking, no, I'm going towards the shooter. I'm going to go deal with this problem. But we're coming, right? And you don't know if we're right down the street. Our office is right down the street here. You don't know if we'll be here in 10 seconds. DPS is right across the road. Or if it's going to be 10 minutes. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows who you are. You're not wearing this uniform. In the crisis, you have just become another suspect. You are a second shooter. When I come in the door, and I'm coming, and I see you sitting there with that gun trying to shoot somebody, what am I going to do? I'm going to shoot you. And I'm going to feel really, really bad about it later. But that's not going to do you any good, is it? Because I'm a pretty good shot. And I guarantee you it'll hurt for just a little bit before it's over for you. Because it will be over. So what I'm asking you is, do not go out there and confront that guy. Do not do that. Avoid. Go away. Avoid. Get out. Save as many people as you can by getting away from the shooter. Next, we're going to deny. If we can't get away, if we can't get out of this room, if there's only one entry and exit point, and we can't get out because he's outside those doors, we're going to deny entry into the room. Don't let him in. Lock the doors, barricade the doors, whatever we can. Take a belt, tie around the doorknob, hold the doorknob back. The closing apparatus at the top of one of the doors, it's got the mechanical apparatus on most doors. Tie a belt or something around that so when they go to open it, it can't expand. Anything that we can do to delay entry into the room. How much time do we need to delay? 3 minutes. We need 3 minutes. Chairs, tables, desks, whatever we got, put it up against the doors. Something to make it difficult for them to get them, because the shooter knows he has very little time also, right? And his goal is mass casualties. So if he can't get in this room, what's he going to do? He's going to move on down the way, right? Defend, deny access into the room. Do what we can to control this area. Do not let that person in. Now then, do we want to go hold the door, stand in front of the door? No, because the shooter, just like in Virginia Tech, may shoot through the door. That's not good for you if you're standing in front of the door. Now, some of the ingenious kids in Virginia Tech that finally were able to defend their room, the doors opened in, they couldn't lock it. They laid on the floor, put their feet against the door, and held it that way. So when he shot through the door, he shot over them. That's pretty smart on the fly, isn't it? They did a good job. Nobody in that room died that day. They were able to defend the room or deny access into the room. If we can't avoid, if we can't defend, or if we can't deny, we have to defend. Don't just sit there and be a victim. You have a right to live out your life as God intended. That person does not have the right to take it from you. Fight for your right to live. Fight for your family, fight for your friends, fight for your kids. So what can we do? Well, let's start thinking about this. 90% of the American population are right-handed. So if I'm going to come into this room with a firearm, which hand will it probably be in? My right hand. And a lot of these guys don't have formalized training. They don't realize that they shouldn't present the gun through the threshold first. They're not going to have it down trying to protect it. They're going to come in the door looking for targets trying to shoot. So if we staged on the left side of the doorway, our left side, and we prepare for them to enter that door, and they come through and they present that right arm with that gun in it, can we do something about that? I need a willing victim right here. You might stand up for me, sir? So he comes in, and he's going to, whether he's got a pistol or a rifle or whatever, if I'm just inside the door here, can I at least just try to grab him and just use my body weight to pull his arm down? How many people can he shoot pointing at the floor? Not many, right? And all I got to do is hold on to that. Now what I need is 4 or 5 other people, and you've got that 1911 in your purse right there. It's heavy, right? That's a heavy gun. If you will just beat the crud out of him with that purse, if we just get on him and just beat him, just help me whoop the snot out of this guy till we can get him down, get him tied with 6 cords, whatever we have to do, and we're going to fight for our lives. We're going to defend this room, right? Can we do that? That's all we're asking. And how long are we going to fight for? 3 minutes. Let us get there. Thank you very much. Just thinking about it ahead of time, making a plan. Where did I set that clicker down? You trying to steal that, weren't you? Shame on you. I haven't fallen off yet, but I'm going to. We avoid the conflict, avoid the shooter. Deny access to the room. At the very end, if we have to defend ourselves, we defend. Now then, for all you people who carry your firearm, I asked you a while ago not to go out in the hall, not to go find that person. You want to? I know you do. It's in all of us. You want to stop this just as bad as we do. But I'm asking you not to do that. What I want you to do is defend this room. Now then, if he tries to come in here, you handle up on your business. You understand? Defend the room. Don't go out trying to engage the shooter out there. Avoid, deny access, but if they come in, now you're defending the room. Now's when you deploy that firearm and you defend this room and save the people in this room. Now then, we as law enforcement, when we're coming, and we get to a door that's closed, what do? If we have a closed door, we pass it up, right? If they're not shooting inside that room, it's closed, barricaded, we're moving on. We're going to gunfire. We're going to the active shooter. Wherever there sounds of gunfire, we're going. If it's you out in the hallway, you're our active shooter. If you're in the room defending the room, we're good. We're not going to come in that room because guess who might get shot next? We might get shot because you're going to shoot anybody trying to come through that door. So we're not that stupid. We're learning too. Don't go in that door. This is Texas. They got guns in there. So we're going to secure the building. We're going to take care of the active shooter. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do a secondary search. Anybody that's trying to hide any hostages that we may have somewhere in the building. And then we're going to start evacuating everybody that we can to get them out of the building. And we're going to knock on the door. We're going to identify ourselves and say, it's all right, we're here, we're police, blah, blah, blah. And what are you going to say? Bull, I don't know who you are. Prove it. The Sheriff Larry Smith told me to tell you to get out of there. We got to go. We got to get this building clear, whatever it is. But we will prove who we are to you, okay? You stay in the room, you defend the room until deny access in that room, and until we can show you, prove to you that it's safe, that we're the ones on the other side of the door, and we're going to evacuate you from the building. So what are we going to do? The ADD today, guys. What are we going to do? Avoid, deny, defend. Everybody good with that? 3 minutes is all we're asking for, guys. 3 minutes. So remember your situational awareness. When you're out with your family, when you're at your job, when you're having dinner, when you're going to the movies, pay attention when you go in. Look for exit points. Pay attention to who comes in and out of the facility. Don't deny what you hear. If you hear gunshots, let's move on. Let's come up with a plan. Let's get to deliberation. What are we going to do? And let's quickly move to taking action. And first and foremost, we want to avoid if we can. If we can't, we're going to defend the room or deny access in the room. And if we have to, we're going to defend ourselves. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for allowing me. Thank you for allowing me to come here and talk to you guys. Unfortunately, this is a terrible topic, but it's part of our reality in our world. And I would rather to give this information out that might save a life than not. So I'm glad to do it any chance I get. So we're going to have some more of these coming up. And if you want to come back or have other people that you want to have this class, I believe we have one at Green Acres Church on the 28th of this month. Here. So last time we had nearly 300 people show up for that class. Love to have more people come out, so please spread the word. And thank you again for letting me be here. Oh, okay.
We're going to go ahead and answer any questions you might have now related to the active shooter first, or if you may have anything. I told you earlier we would also answer any questions you might have, concealed or open carry, that we could answer while we're here. So, did y'all hand out the cards, or just?
We didn't do cards. So
okay. Just raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
Where's the other location for training?
The only one we have scheduled right now, the next training we have will be concealed and open carry, as well as the one we just had in its entirety. And it'll be at Green Acres, I believe the Galilee Room, which is right inside the north parking lot, on the 28th from 6 to 9:30 p.m., I believe.
Right, but if other churches are interested in having it, then...
If other churches are interested in having it, as long as there's a large number of people, we don't want to do it for 20 people at a time. I mean, we'd love to, but we just can't do that. Daryl has other responsibilities as well, and we stay very busy. So we're trying to do as many. He is actually doing one on his day off, and it's going to be in Gladewater, which is in another county. I understand that, but about 30 or 40% of the people going there are Smith County citizens. So he's doing that on his off time. But any large, we'd like to keep them as large as we can. But if you have 25, we'd prefer more than that.
To CCF.
Man.
You were at CCF last year.
Right.
So we're pretty big.
Oh, right. Mike?
In the situation he just described here, if you're defending a room and you have a gun and you take action and say, kill the perpetrator, what do you do with your gun, and what should you do to avoid the policemen who come in thinking that you're part of the problem?
Just first of all, make sure he's not gonna move again and put your gun up.
That's what I'm saying. What do you do with the gun? And
Just reholster your gun, and it'd be just like an officer-involved shooting. What we would do, we would come and ask for the gun from you. It's got to go be submitted to the lab and have certain tests done, just because that's protocol. But first thing you do with a gun is just after you've stopped the threat, is to reholster the gun and wait for law enforcement to get there. Like Sergeant Cosmo said, we're going to knock on the door. We're not just going to stick our head in. So do that, and then come forward. And I assure you, if in that scenario, I cannot believe that there'd be a Smith County grand jury that would indict anybody in a situation like that.
My question is, do you have an estimate as to the number of people that would have a concealed license? Like in this room, would it be 10%, 5%?
I hope it's closer to 90-something%.
I agree, but you know, they talk about soft targets, and suddenly if you're in a room of 150 people and 10% have a gun, it's not a soft target any longer.
Right, I agree. And we don't have any percentages. We haven't worked up an equation like that, but we do have access to the numbers in the state of Texas of how many citizens in the state of Texas have a concealed carry. But then you have the reciprocating states that you can also carry in Texas now. So we don't have any clue. And that's a good thing that we don't know who's carrying. I don't have the numbers on me. No, we do have access to that, but I don't know the number. I looked at it the other day, but I'm sure, I know most of the handgun classes in Smith County right now that I've talked to the people this week are full. For this coming Saturday, they have them, every class is full. The gun stores were full during Christmas, buying guns. I think President Obama has once again the leading gun seller in the United States. So. If they're willing to do it, I'm fine with it. See, I told you that's what we're shooting for. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Sheriff, adding to that, if you look on the DPS website under concealed handgun demographics, they'll have the current statistics on the percentage and how many people in the state of Texas have a concealed handgun. Also, I'm retired DPS. I handle the security at my church. It's a large church up in Longview. And what I'm going to tell my numerous concealed handgun carriers there is to shelter in place when something happens. If there's not a way to avoid to start with, get your family down, get down on your knees, secure your defensive handgun, index your trigger finger. If the guy gets close enough to be a threat to your family, you're going to be firing upward toward the ceiling instead of endangering everybody else in there. Everybody needs to have a safety team that's actually going to try to direct things and take care of the shooter in the room. If you've got a handgun in your purse, think about sheltering in place if you can't avoid to start with. Protect your family and watch for the shooter if he gets close to you.
Thank you.
You got a question over here?
We'll get to you in just a second. Go ahead. I'll see if I hear you while he's walking.
You're the sheriff of the Smith County. Has Tom Selgus approached you about deputizing militia in this county?
Has who contacted me?
Tom Selgus?
I don't, not that I know
He
of.
told me that he had approached you about doing that, deputizing.
I don't know who Tom Selgus is. I've never heard that name.
A few months ago, they had that shooting out in Oregon. And one of the aftermaths is there was somebody, I can't remember which politician it was, excuse me, suggested that the people should have done something other than stand there and watch the guy. They should have rushed him, things like that. And he got a whole lot of scorn heaped on him. Yeah, that's what I thought. What's your response to that?
I think sometimes, very often, when you try to tell people to do the right thing and you try to do the right thing, many times you're in the minority, just like he was. I agree with him 100%. Don't be a victim. Do something, because if you just sit there, you're going to be a victim. But do it in the way that Sergeant Coslin said. You know, retreat first, try to get somewhere away from him. If you can't, defend the room, and then try to get him when he comes in the room. But don't just sit there and be a victim.
Our church has an early childhood ministry attached to the building, runs 5 days a week. Is it legal for me as the pastor to have a CHL?
Oh, absolutely. You set your rules at your church. You and the deacons set your rules at your church. Absolutely. And it's no longer called a CHL, it's called a HL. Just handgun license only now is what it's called. If you have a CHL now, when it's renewed, it'll turn into an HL automatically.
What do we do about the fish in a barrel zones, such as movie theaters?
Well, if my family's going to a movie theater, I recommend that they go to a movie theater. The question is what to do about in a movie theater being a fish in a barrel. My daughter and my son, if they're going to a movie theater and I'm not with them, I recommend they go to a movie theater where law enforcement, armed, uniformed law enforcement is doing security. And if you go to one that's not doing that, you might tell them, I'm not coming back till you have security and take care of our safety.
But there are theaters that you bring your family.
Well, that's great.
I'm a teacher at one of the colleges here, and so I think about active shooter events a lot. And I'm also a CHL carrier, but I understand I can't carry on campus yet, even though it passed. So I wanted to ask, there's actually a lot of division in Tyler among the teachers about carrying on campus and what to do in those kinds of situations. So I was wondering if you had any updates on this area for teachers who concealed carry would like to carry on campus, and if that passes and once that's official, if you guys could do a training for all educators in this area.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, where you teach at is my alma mater, and we have already been approached by somebody there. I can't remember who it was, Young Republican, some group that's asked us to do training there at your school. So we'd be happy to do it.
But as far as the law, you're talking about when.
Oh, the law is going to start August of next year. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I believe it's the 1st of August. It's set at 17 for the
Junior colleges.
For the junior colleges, and 16 this year for the state schools.
For the
public
state
schools.
Universities would be this year in August. For the junior colleges, for some reason, it's going to be August of next year, the 17th.
Are you required to have a license to have a pistol in your car?
No, you don't have to have a license to have a pistol in your car as long as it's concealed. It has to be concealed. It can be loaded. It should be. You should never have a pistol that's not loaded. But as long as it's concealed in your vehicle, it's perfectly, you're in your rights to have one concealed. That changed back in the late 80s, early 90s, I believe. You can't do it like we used to do when I was in high school. We'd go duck hunting or bird hunting in the morning and then go to school. You can't do that anymore. You can't do it in certain locations, but most anywhere. If you wanted to, I'm not saying we need to do it because it's been done. If you wanted to carry a long gun, a shotgun, a rifle in downtown Tyler, you can do it. I don't recommend it, but it has to be pointed in a safe direction. You can still get in trouble if you're not careful with it or whatever, but it is legal to do so. What's legal is not always probably popular or the right thing to do.
I have a question that since the 20 years that I've been carrying, it was my understanding from reading the law that you were not supposed to carry in church. Now, something I just heard here made me a little bit confused, so I'm curious if the open carry has somehow changed those rules.
What I have heard, and Sergeant Coslin, I'll probably turn it over to him, what I have heard, and I know what the church I go to, that little church on Troop Highway, they're gonna leave it to whoever on the concealed carry. And, I think it's still up, and I don't want to put any of the legislators on they got a little bit more work they need to do when they go back to Austin. They came up with a good law, but there's always something that comes up, like exactly what you're asking. And I have been told that it's left up to the whatever denomination it is, like the Baptist church would be the deacons. They make the rule as to whether or not to put but the signage would still have to be up. You can be asked to leave if you open carry without the signage being up, but you have to be asked to leave.
Has there been a agreement with law enforcement on what they're going to enforce?
We're going to enforce the law, whatever the law is. If we don't get a complaint from a church that's saying, hey, so-and-so's in here open carrying, number one, if we get a complaint, they've already asked that person to leave. The person has to leave if he's open carrying and they're asked to do so. If we don't get a complaint, unless we have clear-cut law, we're not going to enforce something that's not enforceable.
I don't think it's particularly
Concealed carry, nobody's going to know you have it, number one. But one good thing that the new law did do away with, if you accidentally show it, I think that's good. But if you conceal carry, and if you have to use it, who cares anyway? You know, I subscribe to the old adage, I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6.
There's actually a judicial prosecution on the CA called the handgun license for concealed carry in churches that says if you are justified in using force or using deadly force, there's a defense to prosecution under that statute if you get voted to do so. Even though the statute says by law you can't carry concealed in the church or open in the church. Before the 84th legislature, the 83rd legislature, if you went to a church or a house of worship and you carried concealed, it was legal to do so unless the 3006 sign was posted at the church. I've never seen one of those at any church I've been to. Certainly not in my church. So.
Right. They're taking care of most of that from the pulpit, just telling the congregation what to do, what not to do. And I'm on the Sheriff's Legislative Committee, and I can tell you as a member of the Legislative Committee, we will be asking many of the congressmen and senators next legislature to try to clean up this law some, make it more easily for us to enforce. And I'll go one step farther. I've been asked this question. Hadn't been asked it yet today, but I'm going to go ahead before I do get asked it, is what are we going to do as law enforcement, Smith County Sheriff's Office going to do when you see somebody walking around with a open carry? Are you going to confront them and ask to see their license? Absolutely not. Unless we have reasonable suspicion or probable cause that they've done something wrong or they're acting in a suspicious manner, we're not going to bother them. And that's just the way it is.
Wait, I just have one question.
Last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it, if you already have your concealed handgun license and it's up for renewal, what is the advantage of renewing it, or do you need to renew it? I'm just asking.
Oh, absolutely, because if you don't renew, the question is there an advantage to renewing your concealed license? It's automatically going to convert to a handgun license, and if you don't renew it, you can't carry open or concealed legally. You have to renew your license when it's up for renewal. You could carry in a vehicle,
But not in my person.
not on your person, correct. You have to have the license still. A lot of people think, and I've had this conversation with people, they think that the constitutional carry passed. It didn't. So you still have to have the license.
That'll do it for questions.
Sheriff, thank you for coming out. Appreciate you guys. Y'all give them a hand.